Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 93. I'm your host, Barney Smith of storycomic.com, and we're excited to have back with us the award-winning and internationally celebrated author, Amy Lawrence. And Amy, you are my first guest to have 3 times. So
I'm so honored. Thank you for having me back a third time.
That's right. You're that's what we said. Yeah, and you've now reached the level of friend of the podcast. So I think we can put that
badge that I could put on my website or something.
I think I should get on Photoshop and make friend of Storycomic Presents. Yeah. So this is there. I didn't realize. I don't know if this is a very interesting pattern that we've set up here. So this is episode 93. Last time around was episode 73, and before that it was episode 53.
Nice.
We weren't even planning that. Like every 20 episodes.
Something that we have to roll with now. This is the universe telling us that this is our pattern.
That's right. So we can expect you to come back on episode 113 then, I guess, right? Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't shock me entirely because with the time zone differences, the only times I'm available to actually speak with you is during my school holidays, which happen on a relatively regular cycle. This is not altogether surprising, but that's awesome that it worked out so precisely.
Right. Yeah. You know what? I just noticed too. I was just like, I like, it's ever since basically it's like when I became a fan of Australia since the 80s, when I was growing up as a kid.
You mean. That's right.
When you were born, yeah. See? Yeah. So you're like, would you technically be a millennial or are you?
Yeah, I'm millennial. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so it was, and I just saw in the news that they actually ended up reintroducing the Tasmanian Devil in Australia.
Yeah.
It's been like 3,000 years or something, right?
So the Tassie Devil. So there's the Tassie Tiger and there's the Tassie Devil, right?
Right.
The Tassie Tiger is our little Australian cryptid, except it's not a cryptid because it actually was real.
The Thalassian.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. And that one went extinct. The last known specimen died in the very, very early 1900s. And of course, it is now a cryptid, and there are periodic sightings of it throughout the mainland and things like that. The Tassie Devil is a different creature altogether, which is about a quarter of the size and 4 times as vicious. They're called devils for a reason. They're adorable, though. You guys would be familiar with them through Looney Tunes, right?
Yeah, we know the Tasmanian Devil. Yeah.
The real Tassie Devils are much, much smaller than the Looney Tunes make out. They're about sort of yay size, like think large cat-ish size, a large house cat, that is. Yeah. They've been in a breeding program in Tasmania for quite a while. They've been available. You know what I mean? They've only been found in the wild in Tasmania, and have been in a breeding program to try and protect them and to work on maintaining bloodlines and things like that. And they've just successfully reintroduced some into the wild, which is pretty cool. So. Right,
and you guys, and you're just we're on the verge of how there was like a 2019 when you had the Australian bush wildfires.
2019? Was it 2019?
It was 2019 because then everything was all about the Australian wildfires, and all of a sudden COVID-19 came and everybody stopped talking about the Australian wildfires.
COVID, that's it, exactly. We had this crazy run. For us, we talk about the bushfires as being the 2020 bushfires because they really peaked in the January. So our summer obviously is December, January, February. Right. So for us, they peaked in January. And so for whatever reason, I don't know. But yes, technically it was the end of 2019 because I was at my mum's house for Christmas and the whole sky was orange.
Right.
I have photos of it. It's amazing. And we went straight from the bushfires or the wildfires into this period of absolutely just ridiculous weather where for about a week up and down the whole east coast of Australia, everywhere was smashed by flooding.
Wow.
And massive, massive hailstorms. And we had a bout of hail go through here. And honestly, you can still drive around town and see cars that have got the hail damage from over a year ago. The car repairs were booked out for months and months and months, just trying to get it all fixed.
Right.
And the hailstones were, golf ball sized plus with like all the little jagged spikes coming out and everything. It looked like something from like Independence Day or some sort of sci-fi horror film type thing, you know? So we went straight from smoke and being unable to breathe and having to have like air purifier readings daily at school to know whether it was safe for students to come to school because of the poor air quality,
right,
into these storms, into with like then like a 3-week reprieve and then into COVID lockdowns. So
right.
yeah, last 18 months have been a thing.
It was more than 18 months. We're all, yeah, it's like, yeah, about 18 months. Gee, yeah, when it started. Oh my goodness. So needless to say, how is like the atmosphere of Australia with, you know, with vaccination rates? This is probably one of the, like, the people are starting to feel like of some like light at the end of the tunnel now, basically, right?
I don't know. It's pretty variable here in Australia because we never had a significant wave to begin with. There's a lot of variability in public opinion as to how urgent it is, I guess.
Right.
We're just in the middle of experiencing a new wave of cases with the Delta strain in Sydney. And this is our first, I mean, Melbourne was in lockdown for a pretty significant period of time as well. So this is, experts are pretty worried that this is going to get out and going to become a second big wave throughout the whole of Australia. And I guess that's putting back into the spotlight the need to get the vaccines out a bit faster than maybe we have been in the past.
Right.
We'll see what happens. So
yeah,
we've been pretty lucky here because of the zero tolerance strategy that the government chose to adopt. It means that we've seen lots of short, hard lockdowns. So anytime there's like, 10 cases, it's like, great, lock that area of the city down, no movement and things like that, which has been great in terms of controlling it up to this point. But the problem is that there's, a bit of public fatigue now, I think, around having to be locked down for what is perceived to be a low number of cases, particularly compared to global experiences. There's a really interesting article in the New Scientist just 2 weeks ago, actually looking at the top 5 countries in the world that had been dealing with COVID. And Australia was one of them and Japan was another, and just noting that 3 of those 5 are currently backsliding out of the top 5 category. And also experts speculating on how much longer it is actually feasible to maintain a zero tolerance policy, and at what point we may have to consider switching strategies as a more long-term sustainable approach. So watch this space.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
And then and then in your territory, how are things going?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. For now, it has really minimal impact on me personally. We had our very first compulsory masks order the last, not this week, but the 2 weeks previous. And that's the first time that we've had a compulsory masking in our state. And we didn't even have any cases in the state. It's just because of the flare up that's been happening. Sydney's 3 hours away, but it's also the closest city, basically. So there's a lot of permeability with that. And we're entirely surrounded by New South Wales. We're just a little island state here. But yeah, so far we haven't had anything come from Sydney. And so masks are off again as a compulsory thing here in Canberra. Schools have opened for term 3 as normal this week. And watch this space. We'll see what happens. Pretty sure that excursion that my classes have been planning for Sydney in 4 weeks' time is not going to be a go ahead. I think we'll be rescheduling that.
Yeah, because it's winter. It's the winter season for you there. And so when it's winter in Australia, what's the temperature?
I mean, it varies wildly. We have, if you go all the way up to the top of the north, that is closer to the equator than Florida is. So there's not much of a winter to speak of there. But if you go all the way south to Tasmania, that's the equivalent of about, and I'm going to test out my American geographical knowledge here. It's closer to the equator than New York. So we don't get as cold America does.
Right.
Where I live here in Canberra in the ACT, average daytime temperature is probably like 10 to 12 degrees, which, let me do a really quick calculation here. Temperature, Celsius, 12, so it's like low 50s Fahrenheit.
Okay.
down to a bit below freezing.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's cold, but it's not like we don't get snow here. We get one snow once a year, and we're lucky if it settles on the ground, right?
Really? Okay. All right.
It's winter now because there was like half a centimeter of snow for 3 seconds on the strip out the front of the house. You know, there's snow in Australia, but there is one place in Australia that you go to do like skiing and snow sports and things like that, and that's about 2.5 hours south of here. So,
really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's
like skiing central in Australia, and that's your only option.
right. So with this, so this is like around this time of season. When is your do you how does it work? Is it, you know, your writing and your creative side? Is there, can you kind of follow it based off of like seasons, or is it months or weeks? Like what's your, is this the time of year where you kind of you see yourself being able to get behind the keyboard more, or is this actually the time where you're behind it less because of the winter vacations and stuff?
I actually literally was just thinking about this last night. So back when I first started writing back in like the early 2010s, so it was about 2007 that I started keeping serious track of my writing. And for about like 5 years or so, I kept a monthly spreadsheet of my writing totals, and actually got Excel to put it into a little graph for me. Okay. And it's really cool because the graph showed like so much consistency from year to year that I didn't even realize was there. And then I started full-time work as a teacher, and then I became a parent, and then it was like, schedule what? And I was literally just thinking last night that now I'm probably back in enough of a rhythm again that I'd really like to take my writing numbers from the last 3 years and do a graph from them again and actually see if there are any peaks and troughs like that, because I know that January is always an amazing month for writing for me. That's when I get a lot of my writing for the year done, because I have no schoolwork for the whole of January, right? That's our summer holidays. And so I try and get that done as much as I can then. And then I also know that June tends to be really, really slow because it's coming into winter. The days are getting shorter. I discovered like last year, why did this not occur to me before, right? That my vitamin D levels get really low in winter. Who'd have think? So, I have to take vitamin D over winter now, and like amazingly, shockingly enough, that makes a massive difference to both my mood and productivity. Vitamin D, it's a thing we should all have. So June is always pretty slow because of the weather, and also because it's a really busy time at school as well. It's the end of first semester for us, so it's all like reports and final grading and all that sort of stuff for the semester. July tends to be okay because I've got a 3-week holiday break. So that tends to sort of be a catch-up month for me. And sure enough, this July, like I have not done much writing this year. But of the small amount of writing that I've done probably about a third of my word count so far for this year in July. So,
wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Okay. And so, and you just have recently, you just said you had a book that since we just we talked last.
I did.
The Bones, is it?
It's on here. Yeah. Bones of the Sea. Let me try and get that so it doesn't reflect from the window in front of me.
Okay.
Bones of the Sea. No, we just got reflections happening. That's okay. There we go. Yeah. You get the point. So I think when I chatted to you guys last, it was it would have been around April, and I would have just finished the Kickstarter for this which happened in like March, April. Right. And I had set the deadline of like getting everyone's rewards out by the end of April. April came and went, and I had not finished writing the book yet. I was like, okay, I need another really hard deadline. And so I put it up for pre-order everywhere, and I was like, okay, 7th of June. That's like plenty of time. It's like 2 months away. I will definitely be able to get the book written by then. I've only got like 5,000 to 10,000 words left. This will be fine. I can do this. And then work got really busy because I got like a temporary promotional position this last term. And I was like, that's okay. The distributors only need the files 48 hours before release, right? So I can push this right up to the 5th of June. the long weekend coming up. It's going to be fine. We'll do this. Anyway, Draft to Digital emails me 2 weeks before and it's like, so we need the final files 10 days before your release date. I'm like, that's this. It's like Sunday and that's this Friday. So yeah, I didn't get much sleep that week. But I did get the book done and I did get it to the distributors in time, and it even had a time for a round of edits. So
that was my next question. I was going to ask you is like, how did you do the edits of that? So how long would that take to?
My darling, amazing friend Liana Brooks, who is my publishing partner. We were talking about this just before, right? We're really lucky that she is really good at content edits and big picture edits, and she's actually a freelance editor and does some work for that. And I am better at line edits and copy edits, and I do some freelance work for that. Right. And so I was in a very privileged position to be able to be like, Liana, if I finish the book on Thursday, my time, can you read it during the day of Thursday on your time and then have it back to me by Friday morning? And then I've got Friday to frantically do edits in between teaching my classes and upload it to all the distributor sites before I go to bed on Friday night. So,
oh, wow. Oh, my goodness.
That is what we did. Thankfully, because, you know, it's relatively short. It's like a 70-page story. It's about 11,000 words, I think. Okay. So it didn't require really intensive edits. So
yeah. So real quick, what's the synopsis of the book?
So we live in a world where this carnivorous mist comes in from the ocean unpredictably every so often and just like devours everything in its path, human and animal. And as part of this, though they're not sure how it's connected to begin with, right? There is this extremely strict prohibition on touching bones. You do not touch bones, to the point where and even like it says in the book, even if someone gets a broken bone and has a bone injury, they send them out of the district to go and be treated at one of the other hospitals. Because in this little district, on this little base of this island, you do not touch bones. And of course, mild spoilers for the first part of the book here. Our lovely protagonist gets caught in a situation where she is trapped between the encroaching carnivorous mist, and the only potential solution that she has is to just go all in and touch these bones and see if these old children's nursery rhymes about the bones is true, and see if they can offer her some protection against this carnivorous mist. So it's sort of this choice of like, die now, die later, die now, die later. Well, I'm going to pick die later and we'll deal with that problem when we come to it. And so she does. And then, of course, she has to deal with said problem. So
is it kind of like a one now? Your stories your stories is there a shared universe piece on this, or is this kind of a one-off where there's?
You never know. There might be more in the world. We'll see. I really enjoyed putting together the world building for it, and it was really one of those stories that really just came together as I was writing it. So when I do the Kickstarter version, I do like a little letter from the author as well that goes in it and goes out with them. And in that, I talk about the writing process for this one, because I had such a hard deadline and I just had to get it done. And I didn't really have a plan for what was happening going in. And I knew I had this little fan kit mini that I had put together, right, for the Kickstarter, that I had to put together for the Kickstarter. I actually kind of did the whole book process in reverse, in that I'd written the first half of the book and then I went shopping for the items for the Kickstarter and was like, all right, what are some cool items that kind of match the vibe of this world that I'm trying to create? All right, awesome. I need to include those touch points in the story, and I know that those are going to be the elements that then have to drive the plot from here on. So yeah, the world really came together in a really kind of spontaneous sort of way. And we'll see, maybe I'll go back and play there again sometime, but for now it's a standalone. So yeah.
Like, what was your inspiration behind this?
The whole story itself?
Yeah.
Man, that is such a good question. I started writing this over Christmas up at my in-laws' place because I just wanted to write something quick. It was quick. It's just that the quickness was drawn out over a period of like nearly 6 months. But tallying up the actual time I spent on it, it was quick. I wanted to write something quick, and I really wanted to create something that gave this really sort of eerie but beautiful sort of atmosphere at the same time, and really work hard on playing with my language to try and develop that tone and that feeling more than anything else.
Right.
And so the first section of this book actually stands alone as a short story of its own, and it does that kind of the gimmick that like the crime genre uses a lot, where it's like, here's a person going about their daily life. Oh, look, now they're dead. And then the rest of the book is like, well, let us solve the mystery of how that person died. So I borrowed that trope, and that's how this book starts. And so I knew that I wanted to have this man walking down the beach and have the waves come up and like devour him. And I knew about the bones, and it just kind of went from there, you know?
Right.
One of those really cool stories that just kind of unspooled itself. And then, as I said, pulled in this inspiration from other places when I had to like actually go shopping for a Kickstarter for a book that I hadn't finished yet, and be like, well, I'm committing to have this, and this in there. You know, I don't know. Can I do spoilers? I don't know. Go buy the fan kit, go buy the fan kit. Yeah.
I don't. Did you? There was a story that happened. It was like in Cameroon. Did you hear about this gas that killed an entire village in Cameroon in 1986? It was this.
The lake.
Yeah, it burped up this gaseous. Yeah, this poisonous gas. It was carbon. I think it was a carbon. I can't remember what it was. And it just, because it was the low density, it just went right through the village at night. And
which is awful.
Right.
But a really cool concept for fiction.
Yeah. It's always And so what are your, and you're still working on, I mean, and also too, you're still working on your rush job, your Solarian Blue series. True.
Yeah. Right. I mean, kind of in the background. So, well, actually, no, that's about to come to the foreground. Okay, hang on. So this is the book that you're talking about here. It is here. I promise it's here. Here we go. This one here, right? Rush job in the Witch Blue universe.
Right.
On there. And that is like a little standalone adventure that happens with characters. You probably won't ever see those characters again necessarily, unless I get a whole bunch of feedback of people being like, we love this character, write more. It's very much just like a taste of the world rather than anything in the main stories at all.
Right.
But that whole series has this backstory. I don't know if I've told you about this one before or not. Stop me if I have. That's fine. This backstory of how humans went to space in the first place, because it's a sci-fi where like humans have sprawled out amongst the stars and that sort of thing. And the backstory for it involves my Year 8 class from 2 years ago, because somehow I decided it was a really good idea to promise 25 teenagers that I would make them all main characters in a book. I don't know if you've ever tried to write a book with 25 main characters before, but it is really complicated.
Yeah, I don't even think George R. Martin had 25 main characters in his.
That's for good reason. The man is more sensible than I. But nevertheless, I have now promised children that this will be a thing. So it took me like a year to wrap my head around how on earth I would actually physically tell a story with 25 main characters. And now the pressure is on to actually get that done by the end of the year, because some of the kids involved are clearly no longer in Year 8, because that was 2 years ago. And they're leaving the school at the end of the year, and they keep, every time they see me, they're like, Miss, story? I'm like, yes, I know, it's coming, it's happening. So that's my next project that I'm actually I'm gonna wrap up this short piece of fiction that I'm working on at the moment, that has been my holiday palette cleanser.
Right.
And then I'll be diving into what's called Moonshot, which is the origin of the Witch Blue universe, courtesy of my Year 8 class. So. Okay.
And that is going to be, that's going to be like, similar to, is it going to be similar to your, Where the Shadows Rise? There's just going to be like 3 books, or is it going to be one big book, or what is?
It's just going to be the one.
Okay.
It will be pitched at the same age group. So it's in that, I don't know, my brain does weird things. I know we've talked about this before. This is part of the reason why I do my own publishing, because my brain goes weird places, and I need to be able to like follow the squirrel, you know?
Right.
Like if my brain is like, hey, shiny idea squirrel, I'm like, yep, we need to be able to follow that. Which I'm kind of having stern conversations with myself at the moment about the fact that I have 2 open series right now that need to be finished.
Right.
They're not the shiny squirrels right now. So, you know. But so Moonshot's in this weird situation where it is going to be a standalone middle grade novel introducing a story world that will be very much not a middle grade story world.
Right.
Anyway, but it'll stand alone, so it can be its own little thing, and that's all right. Yeah.
And that was the one that you're telling us about that has different powers based off of your Myers-Briggs results.
I'm so impressed that you remember that. Thank you. Like I tell people about story stuff. I kind of expect it to just be like, you know? Yeah, so that's the universe where the Myers-Briggs personality type index determines your superpowers. And this origin story of the kids is the story of how these superpowers actually came about in the first place. And there's a whole bunch of cool science biology behind that. I had to go and like determine different types of bacteria and gut health and all this sort of thing. So it's not that any of this will necessarily show in this. It's the iceberg principle, you know, like you'll see like that much in the story, but I've got this underneath that's all like, yes, these superpowers are supported by biology and current contemporary science to do with gut health and bacterial impact on the brain and all these sorts of things. It's very exciting. And yes, I did make my entire year 8 class take Myers-Briggs personality type tests so that I could give them their accurate superpowers for the book. Excuse me.
So I guess are you like, when you're putting this together, it's like, do you have to, I don't know, just from a legalese perspective, like, are you making them specifically their names and them, or do you have to like get their parents to sign off on that? Or this is just more of like a, like an inspiration of them, right? Yeah.
I've told them all really clearly that the only similarity is their first name. That's it. That's all they get. Right. So they can recognize their own first name, and then everything else based on that is just whatever the story needs to happen at the time. And kids are pretty forgiving with that, and it's pretty cool because a bunch of them will even do things like, can I die at the end of the story? Can I be the bad guy, please? So, you know, they're pretty generous in giving you a lot of leeway when it comes to maligning their good name and characters for the trash for them. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, no, it's first name only so that they can recognize themselves, and then everything else is just that's up for discussion depending on the needs of the story at the time. So yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So there you got some other stuff that I saw since we talked last that's on your website. I don't know if you wanted to chat a bit about this too, that you have on here. So tell us, what is Cook with Amy? What is Cook with Amy? And this is all for anybody. So listening here, like who are listening to this, go to amylawrence.com, and right there, Amy has a nice list of stuff, and we'll have this in the show notes for people to just, click on their phone to see the link to this. So it's amylawrence.com. And you have a new tab on here called Cook with Amy. So I didn't see that before. So I was kind of curious to see what this is all about.
Look, it's a work in progress, and it's kind of an experiment. We just talked about my brain and the squirrels, right? So this is where my highly suspected ADHD comes in, right? In that I chronically have more projects going than I really should have, and it's really sane. And I mean that very literally and not in an ableist sense at all. I mean, literally, I have more projects going than I can do and stay sane and maintain my mental health. Right. And this is one of them. So it's kind of fallen a little bit by the wayside in the last term, as like if you've been stalking my website at all, you will see that there is like nothing new on there since the end of April, because I got this temporary promotion at work and the wheels have just fallen off all of my authorial promotional stuff. And I'm planning to get back to that next week, hopefully. But Cook with Amy, so it's been kind of abandoned, but I'm hoping to pick it up again soon. And it came from a couple of things. So I work with a really amazing bunch of people at work, right? And at one point, I was having this fantastic lunchtime conversation with a friend about books and about, you know, symbolism and meaning of books and things like that. And we looked at each other and we went, this would make a really cool podcast, you know? And someone who was sitting nearby listening was like, yeah, it would. You guys should record this. You should do a podcast. So for most of last term, we did a weekly podcast for the students on the text that they were studying for year 10. So we had a year 10 podcast going, and that was really cool. And everyone got super into it, and there's like theme music for it and everything. And we're hopefully going to continue it next term. And anyway, it was all very cool, right? Around about the same time, I was also in the process of trying to revamp my recipe collection, because while I really like cooking in the abstract as a thing over there that I do sometimes, the whole having to do dinner like every single night, it's like, what do you mean we need to eat a meal again? We just did that yesterday. Again. Oh, it annoys me so much. I'm not good with things that require like small amounts daily, you know, like give me a task that's like a 12-hour task that I can just like sit down, focus for 12 hours, smash that out and be like, yes, I achieved the thing. And I am like, yes, this is my optimal performance zone. Give me something where it's like, okay, that's cool, but you need to do 12 hours, but you have to do like 5 minutes of that every day for as long as it takes to get to 12 hours. And I am like, no, no, don't do this to me, right? So cooking every day is a pain in the backside. We had been getting some of those, I don't know, I guess you guys have something similar in America where it's like food boxes where they deliver all the ingredients to your house in a box with the recipes, and then like you cook what they told you to cook. Do you guys have things like that?
Yeah.
So we had tried a few of those and they were really cool, and I really appreciated the fact that I didn't have to choose what to cook every night. I just had to do what the box told me to do, right? But also, we all know that when the box says it's going to take you 35 minutes to make the meal, you're like, sweetie, I'm in for an hour in the kitchen right now. You know, like that's not realistic or plausible on any level.
Right.
And like cooking shows like Jamie Oliver, who, bless, does amazing meals and is like, this is going to take you 15 minutes to put together, and stands behind a kitchen bench where everything has been thoroughly pre-prepped, you know, and like his bell peppers are like perfectly diced and his onion is already pre-sliced. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It'd take me 15 minutes to put that together if I had a team of paid chefs to do all the prep work. No, that's not fair. So anyway, I was in the process of revamping my recipes to create our own food box style thing for our house, because the food boxes are great, but they're, you know, they're not the cheapest way of getting your groceries, and there's a lot of plastic packaging involved.
Right. So
I was like, right, I will just scan in every single recipe I own that I might ever want to cook, and I will put it together in bundles of 5, and I will make a shopping list for that bundle of 5. And so every week, all we have to do is just pick a random bundle. There's the shopping list. It's done. We don't have to think about what to eat. Bam, let us, you know, make this process easier. And anyway, I was telling people at work about this, and they were like, that sounds amazing. We would totally pay for that. I'm like, that's cool, but I don't have the copyright to the recipes, so this is not a thing I could do. They're like, no, but ingredient lists are not copyright. You can't copyright an ingredient list. Huh. And they were like, and so what? Yeah, apparently this is a thing. So my friend informs me, and she worked in an industry that would know. So before she was a teacher. So she was like, oh, you could just do like a video of yourself making the recipe. And I was like, I could, but then I would have to have a clean kitchen every time I wanted to make a video. That is just not a thing that is going to happen more than like once a year. So that kind of collided with the podcast idea, right? And I was like, oh, well, I don't actually have to do visuals necessarily. Maybe I could just do audio only. Mm-hmm. And anyway, for the last couple of years, so I don't know, have I talked about the bus? Capital letters, the bus, you know?
I don't know if we have. I
don't think I have. So because, again, our family needs more projects in its life. Are we still thinking things here? We bought a bus in 2019, and by a bus, I mean like a 42-seater coach bus.
What?
And my husband is in the process, because he's amazing and an architect,
Right.
of converting it into a camper van / mobile office for himself. And it's pretty cool. Like, like the cargo bay down underneath where you normally put all your luggage and stuff when you're traveling in coach. Yeah. That's going to be converted to be the kids' bedroom. So they're going to go downstairs through a trapdoor downstairs, and like that's their bedroom. Anyway, it's very cool.
Wow.
So he is away a lot because we don't have space in Canberra to be working on the bus. And so he'd been traveling to Sydney for that. And so I had a lot of evenings by myself. And I was like, right, children, go play upstairs where I can't hear you for half an hour. Let me test out this idea. And anyway, it turns out that talking to myself for half hour, 45 minutes while I cook dinner is actually a really good incentive for me to actually cook dinner when my husband is away. And so that's what I did. I recorded myself a few times cooking dinner. And the whole point of it is that it is directly live. I have not pre-prepared anything. There are like literally you have to listen to me getting my ingredients out of my pantry even, and rummaging around being like, I know the rice is here somewhere. I'm just going to move the cereal and the sultanas out of the way and try to find the rice in my pantry. So it's a very realistic interpretation of actually how long these recipes take you to cook, right? And it's supposed to be like beginner friendly as well. So y'all can like follow along, put it on your speakers and whatever, and get out the list of ingredients and be like, all right, I can chop just as fast as Amy can because she's not a professional chef. Yeah, it's been super fun. I'd really like to continue doing it. I don't know how quickly I will be adding recipes. My intent was to do it once a month, but everything kind of fell apart last term. So who knows? But yeah, it's been super fun. And I don't know, if it gets enough popularity eventually, then it could spiral off and be its own little website thing or something. But also maybe not, because again, too many projects in my life. Do I need more? But in the meantime, it's been fun. So yeah, that is the story behind Cook with Amy.
and you have also on here, like you have an art store, so you actually do your own art.
Yeah.
We've always talked to you as an author. We've never talked to you here as an artist.
I did a lot of art in high school. I was one of the kids in year 11 and 12 who like carried a sketchbook around with me to every class to scribble in while I was listening. Again, like looking back, so many signs that I had ADHD, and we never realized this was a thing, Anyway, and then for years and years, I didn't have space in my life to actually do anything with it. And what really brought art back in a big way was two things. Secondarily was the Kickstarters, and the fact that I wanted to have cool art to go with the Kickstarters. And so I invested in a set of Copic markers so that I could do fun artwork for that. But the primary motivating factor to get back into it is the images that you see. A lot of those come from the inklets. And so I really wanted the inklets to have an illustration at the beginning of each of them, A, because it would be cool, and B, because it adds another page of content.
Right.
And of course, I could not afford to pay someone else to come and do the illustrations for what is going to be a 120 book series. Like, I can't afford to pay someone for 120 illustrations, and pay them a fair rate for their time, So I was like, all right, well, this is my excuse to get back into art again. And so I've done all the illustrations for the inklets. So, puppies and I don't know, all sorts. I think this one's a dog as well, actually, just coincidentally. There you go, another dog.
So each one of your inklets has one illustration?
One illustration in the front. Yeah. Although I think this one, so there's that. And then I think because it is a double issue, I think that the double issue ones have 2 illustrations in them. Oh, no, this one doesn't. Okay. Maybe some of the double issue ones have 2 illustrations.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they all have at least 1 illustration in them.
And so when you're talking about your issues of like keeping a buffer up there, what was some of the deciding factors that make some of them double issues?
Actually, it was a word count thing more than anything else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The double issue stories tend to be under 1,000 words each, and so we sort of bundle two flash fictions together. to give it a bit more value for money.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. And so, what's do? I don't know if you saw this. It was like one of my buddies was talking to me about this today, that Amazon just launched Kindle Vella.
I saw that phrase somewhere, like literally yesterday when I was researching something else, but I have not heard about what it is yet.
It's almost like what you do with your inklets. It's like a serialized version of Kindle.
Yeah. So like doing long form novels, but in a serial format.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah, that seems to be a real trend. I think particularly with the rise of streaming TV, people are so used to consuming their fiction now in serial format because we watch a TV show and it's in serial episodes.
Right.
And then it's also organized into larger seasons. And so really what you're talking about is chapters in books in a series, right? And so I think that that's a really exciting possibility. Vella is not the first place to do it. There's a couple of other places. Radish was one of the first places to do it for written fiction. I think it's a really exciting development that really mirrors what we're seeing in terms of how people are digesting a lot of their content. And I think that it's a really beneficial way of thinking about stories as well, to a large extent. I mean, this is certainly not the first time this happened. This is how Dickens wrote 90% of his work, right? As he was serializing it in the weekly newspapers and whatnot. And it does lend a really nice sense of structure to your work because you've got that sort of episodic style. And it's not for everyone and it's not for every book, but it's cool that it's there as an option, like my kids have just gotten into audiobooks, which I'm so excited about because it makes our car trips so much more manageable now. They tore through the Faraway Tree series, and we've just done the Wishing Chair series as well, both Enid Blyton. And I was just thinking as we finished the last Wishing Chair book yesterday coming home, how interesting it is that a lot of that old fiction is really episodic in nature. And even things like, Anne of Green Gables is probably what I'll go next with them. And again, something that's really episodic and lends itself really well to that kind of structure. So yeah, I think that's a really exciting development.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. And so do you foresee yourself with either inkprint press or with just your Amy Lawrence specific work? Do you see yourself maybe starting to utilize a serialized Kindle format at all?
It will depend. If we're talking about Vella in particular, it will very heavily depend on their terms and conditions. Amazon is a big fan of exclusivity. Right. And I'm a big fan of publishing in as many venues as you possibly can to make your income stream as broad as possible and so that you are less reliant on one particular company. I've already been, this last couple of weeks has just been a complete headache and a nightmare because one of our key distributors has completely changed the way that they do stuff at their back end. And that's having a really big impact on what we're having to do in terms of our workflow for publishing each title. And it's really annoying on so many levels to be so beholden to other companies for your income. Like I can make as many books as I like, but unless there are distributors who can get those out to readers for me, I'm kind of hamstrung in this career, So yeah, Amazon tends to like exclusivity a lot, and I prefer to not have to rely solely on one company for my income when it comes to this. So I would have to have a really good look at the terms and conditions. Radish, though, I've been looking into. I've had half of How Not to Acquire a Castle sitting on Radish for me to waiting for me to upload the other half so I can hit go so it's available for sale there for at least 18 months. So it's kind of something I plan to investigate. It just hasn't risen to the top of the priority
right
yet, Yeah.
So with that said, when you do your self-publishing, then so you don't do it exclusive through like Kindle Direct, then
we go through KDP through Kindle Publishing, yeah, absolutely, but not Kindle Select.
Okay.
Yeah, so Kindle Select is where you have to go if you want to be able to do things like having free discount days and particular sale promotions and things like that, and it puts you into Kindle Unlimited KU, which subscription model service. So readers pay a particular fee per month and then can sign up and read an unlimited number of books for that fee in the month. So it's a good deal for the reader, But in terms of having to offer exclusivity to Amazon as an author, I'm less comfortable with that. I mean, some people do it and they make a killing doing it. So fantastic, great for them. That's obviously the right decision for their business at the time. So it's not a judgment call. It's just not something that I'm personally comfortable doing. That's all.
So how does that, so I'm just just from an author perspective, is like, you can't have two ISBN numbers for the same book, right?
You can have two ISBNs for the same book as long as they're different editions or different formats or different.
Okay.
Etc. Yeah.
Like, say, for instance, you wanted just to do one through like KDP Select or something where you would just Kindle Select, so you would have that, but then say 10th anniversary edition, or call it something else, or
yeah, I mean, I guess there would be ways to get around it. I don't know. Yeah, and you hear stories, for example, I know one author in particular who doesn't have the rights to her novels back from the traditional publisher, but never signed away anthology rights, and so she can't sell the books independently as an independent author, but she can bundle all three books together and sell the collection, like the complete series collection of it. So there's always tricky ways around things like that, but I don't know, at the moment, because I'm in Australia anyway, my audience is naturally going to be a lot more global than if I was possibly like an American in America promoting to American audiences anyway.
Right.
And so I can reach to other venues and get readership through those other venues as well. And so I guess it's just not ever been something that I necessarily needed to prioritize going into detail about when it comes to Amazon Select. And you can get in and out of the Select program. It's a 90-day exclusivity thing. And so I know authors also that use it really successfully by using it as like a 90-day pre-order for everywhere else, and it's in Kindle Select for 90 days, and then it goes wide to everywhere else after that once you get the rights back from that 90 days. So there are certainly ways to integrate it into your publishing workflow for sure.
Right. Wow. So it's already been an hour, Amy. That was quick, huh? So real quick, so tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find your work.
Yeah, for sure. The easiest place to find it is www.amylawrence.com/shop.
There it is.
Buy all my stuff right there, amylawrence.com/shop. You can also head to there it is right there, Amy Lawrence / if you click on the books link at the top there, and then bookstore is the first one. Yep, that's it. And that's amylawrence.com/shop. Everything is available for sale there. It takes a second to load, but there they all are. Wow. And you can order everything there in print and ebook. Obviously, if you're ordering print from me, then you're getting a signed copy direct from me, and so the shipping may or may not be to your taste. So you can that's okay. I completely understand that. So you can head over to whatever your favorite print seller online is, wherever you're online. But yeah, if you want to grab a signed copy, that's a great way to do it. Or their ebooks are available there. The fan kits are all available there as well for the books that have fan kits. You can also head to inkprintpress.com, which is our publishing website, and see everything there laid out by genre and by type. Yep, there we go there. So again, you can shop books, you can shop fan kits, and we've got some book-related goodies there. We've got some book-themed pins and things up at the moment, and we're going to be adding to that throughout the second half of the year.
Wow.
But otherwise, we're available everywhere good books are found. So head to your favorite retailer online, and we will be there.
Perfect. All right. So then I guess, Amy, I will see you again then on episode 113, right? We're going to keep this pace up, huh?
It's a date. Absolutely.
And they're all prime numbers. It seems like we're out there. Those are prime numbers, right? 53, 73, 93. I think they got to be prime numbers. Maybe.
No, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
Not divisible by 3. I don't know. Maybe something like 7. I don't know.
Well, 93 has to be divisible by 3 then. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's divisible by 8. Yeah. So, I think then we kind of got out of that. But we're every 20 episodes.
We still have a nice pattern going, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, thank you very much, Amy, and congratulations again on publishing another book. And so excited to just keep watching and seeing how things go. So
you're very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.